We'll now examine an example of imagery in writing. This is an opening excerpt from a student's personal statement. A personal statement is like a narrative or a story essay that students send to colleges as part of their admissions packages to reflect on themselves and demonstrate why they should be accepted at that school. We're going to underline the specific types of imagery that he uses in the opening of his personal statement as we read. The air is tainted with unnatural fumes of grease, wood, and burnt electrical tape. Oil slicks stain the floor. Thick wooden shelves sag unnervingly close to buckling under the weight of the old house paint and power tools. A workbench lies buried beneath papers, rulers, cans, and metal shards. An uncomfortable growl pours from the water heater. Now, the diction that he uses doesn't just tell us that he can smell the fumes, but rather that it is tainted, that this olfactory imagery is all over, like it's suggesting that the smell is everywhere. And that the oil slicks, shelf sagging, buried beneath papers, all visual imagery here. I can just imagine how packed it is and what it looks like. And growl. Growl is such a great word for auditory imagery because we could just hear that from the water heater. Now, it is your turn to find all this in a following excerpt from this introduction. You're going to pause the video, find the imagery, and identify the type of imagery that he uses. So again, pause the video, find the imagery, and identify the imagery that he uses. All right. We can see that he uses and that he slapped an Arduino microcontroller, that's sort of like a mini computer, onto his robotics project, and that he watched jets shake the sky and explosions rock the screen. And he uses these to show or use visual and tactile imagery to demonstrate how his interest in robotics sparked. And so this helps us understand why is he using this type of imagery. But to get further into that, we also need to understand the context. And to give us more context, we'll look at the last paragraph of his introduction. And we'll be able to see why the author painted such a picture at the beginning of the personal statement with all this description of the garage by looking more at following paragraph later on. So he says, sure, outside of my garage, I love wildlife and hiking, history and weird foods. I love classic rock, jazz, and maybe even secretly Katy Perry. Nevertheless, I have always had a life plan centered on robotics. Go to a great college, learn robotics, build robots, get a Bernese mountain dog, and live happily ever after in a beautiful forest home. It seems strange that I've committed myself to robotics so easily despite my many interests. But in reality, robotics nearly combines all of them. And this imagery of the packed garage at the beginning contrasts with his imagery or his interests of outdoors. So like wildlife and hiking, getting a mountain dog, right? But following even this passage, he uses the messy garage and robotics as symbols of his curious nature or the fact that robotics combines all of it. And in the words of Johns Hopkins University, that's the college that admitted the student based on his writing, you get a sense of his dynamic personality in his entertaining description of his interests. So if we were to put it all together, we would say something like, the student uses visual imagery of his packed garage to represent his interests in robotics. So just like the image of this garage here and these students with their own robotics project, we can see that he does the same in his own imagery in text. But we'll look at what exactly effective analysis of imagery is and how we can even deepen this more in our next video.